Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War has been in hibernation since 2017, and its most recent installment was far from universally well received. So when King Art Games was handed the task of bringing it back, there were a lot of tricky decisions to navigate and an eager but picky fanbase to face. We recently got to chat with creative director Theysen and senior game designer Elliott Verbiest about how the team is calling the shots.
Boss, we're gonna crash into the planet! Yeah, good! They won't get away this time! Crash faster!
It was King Art's previous game, Iron Harvest, that seemed to catch the attention of someone at Games Workshop. And it's not too difficult to see why, if you look at its big, stompy robots.
So we were working on Iron Harvest, our previous game, an RTS game as well. And that was a Kickstarter game, so we were very open about the development, right? And we showed a lot of stuff we can do with, the engine and what we do in terms of art and so on. And someone at Games Workshop must have seen that, and they basically contacted us and asked, if you would work, if we would do a Dawn of War 4, what would you do, basically? And, so we made a little pitch and we sent them over our ideas in the presentation, and we didn't really heard back from them a lot, right? And so we basically thought, okay, that's it, right? It's like cool that they ask us, basically. And then when Iron Harvest came out, it was successful, right? They basically came back and said, okay, let's talk about it for real. But you can't really believe it, right? So it's more like, yeah, well, okay, now they're asking us, but, in reality, we're not going to make Dawn of War 4, and slowly but surely it becomes more realistic, but you don't really dare to believe it, right? And then at some point, you sign the contract and it's like, holy, it's there, we're doing it.
For many, myself included, Dawn of War was the gateway to the whole Warhammer 40,000 universe, and King Art hopes that this next installment might be as well. It's a sprawling and sometimes convoluted setting, so that's not exactly a straightforward task.
A lot of people say, okay, Dawn of War, yes, that was like, the first time I really interacted with Warhammer. And so for us, it was very important to basically make a Dawn of War 4 that is, of course, for fans, but also like a potential entry point for someone who's new. I remember basically how I felt when I played the game like Dawn of War for the first time, and it was like, okay, it's super cool, but also I don't understand a lot, right? But I understood enough, so the game was fun, right? It was not like I had to know what all the different weapons do or something like that. It was more like, okay, I can figure it out, right? And I think that is also the approach we take for Dawn of War 4, which is basically, without any prior knowledge of Warhammer, you still need to understand what the factions are about, what the units are about. You won't understand all the different weapons and equipment and all of that, but it's fine, you can figure it out.
Taking the brutal, aggressive orcs as an example, the goal with the design of the whole faction is that you should naturally be able to figure out how to play without knowing a ton about their lore or even having it spelled out for you. But those of us who have been living part of our lives in this universe for years should still have stuff to be excited about.
We don't really tell the players, if you play orcs, you should have a lot of units and a lot of buildings and, just have this explosive expansion. It's just kind of feels natural to play that way, right? Because buildings are cheap, units are cheap, you lose a lot, so you build a lot, right? And even if the people don't know what orcs are about, they can still play them correctly.
Yeah, and I think that's something I would jump off on, is I think that's actually one of the main appeals for the Warhammer 40k universe, is that enormous breadth and depth of things that you can potentially learn. It's definitely one of the things that attracted me to it, was that, okay, sure, of course, like there is a surface level understanding of it that you can introduce through the game, for example, through a story or a campaign that kind of gets you into that world, essentially, but there's so much more to it, and I think that promise of, hey, there's much more going on beneath the surface, I think is what attracts so many fans to it. And I think that's also how you can serve both fans old and new, is that you introduce a story, something to help onboard players into this world, but you have enough detail and other things within that signal to like more established, more veteran fans of the universe of like, hey, we are aware of this and we speak the same language, we have the same understanding here.
But even within the Dawn of War envelope, there are different players bringing different expectations to the table. Dawn of War 1 was more of a traditional basecraft RTS like StarCraft. Dawn of War 2 put the focus more on upgrading a few elite squads, almost like an RPG. And Dawn of War 3 was, well, I try not to think about it too much, but even it had its fans apparently. So deciding what Dawn of War 4 was going to be in context of the previous games was a judgment call all its own.
I mean, that was definitely one of the big questions at the beginning, right? Basically, okay, what is a Dawn of War game, right? Because Dawn of War 1 and 2, at least, everybody, at least here at the company, really loves, but they're very different games, right? And, you can say, okay, maybe we can make a kind of, best of both of those, but we're not sure that actually works, right? And so in the end, we said, okay, we have to go with one of them, and we said ultimately, okay, let's go a little bit back to the roots, right? Let's do Dawn of War 1, basically, or our version or our interpretation of Dawn of War 1. Let's see if something from Dawn of War 2 or even 3 works with that, right? And if it does, sure, then let's put it in. But, Dawn of War 1 was clearly like our guiding star.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because that also informed a lot of the gameplay and design decisions that we made as well. The real-time strategy genre is also something that has very different market segments or different audiences that have very different, sometimes conflicting needs. And I think that having that clarity of vision of we want to go for Dawn of War 1 and how people felt about that definitely also informed a lot of the choices that we made as to what kind of parts of the game are we focusing on. So that's why we have this emphasis on the campaigns as kind of like our flagship feature, as well as having all these, fantastic cinematics and CGIs that we then have to inform that story, because that's something that I think a lot of people were missing from this genre for quite a while.
And storytelling is poised to be front and center for Dawn of War 4. While many RTSs have led with a competitive multiplayer mindset, King Art is putting a lot of emphasis on their dynamic campaigns and the single-player experience.
Because that is the first big decision we made was basically, okay, if we, do a Dawn of War 4, we want 4 factions back and not only 3. And if we have 4 factions, we really would like to tell a story for each of the factions, right? And then all of the 4 campaigns have this overarching story, basically. And for us, that just felt, like a natural thing we wanted to do, because we like campaigns. We know that a lot of RTS players like campaigns. And so let's really focus on that. And then, we made our lives even harder because we decided, okay, let's maybe also have the campaigns be a little bit non-linear, so there are things like you can pick which of the orc bosses you want to play, for example, or, there are missions that are mutually exclusive, right? Or things that, you can optionally do and so on. So for us, it's like this, the campaign is like the heart of the whole thing, and that has to work. But of course, then also we have multiplayer and we have Last Stand and so on. So we have, enough stuff for multiplayer fans as well.
If you're interested to hear more about the non-linear aspects of the Orc campaign, keep an eye out for our hands-on preview later this month. Then be sure to check out all of our other Dawn of War 4 coverage as part of IGN First, including the Orc cinematic trailer. And for everything else, keep it right here on IGN.
Go!